Well, it's been a hot minute since I've done a review like this, in which I reviewed 2 movies in the same video, but here's what happened. Thursday night I saw The Wild Robot, and I came home, ate dinner, passed out around 9:30, woke up at 1 in the morning with my lights all still on, so I didn't even have time to write a review until Friday, and then things got in the way over the weekend, so that's why I'm late to The Wild Robot. But as for the other movie, we'll get to that when we get to that.
Processing language.
You need to learn how things work on this island.
Hello.
The Wild Robot comes to us from Chris Sanders, director of The Croods, Lilo and Stitch, and of course, How to Train Your Dragon. Yeah, if you weren't at all convinced on seeing this movie, that alone should change your mind. After a shipwreck, an intelligent robot named Roz is stranded on an uninhabited island. To survive the harsh environment, Roz bonds with the island's animals and cares for an orphan baby goose. So I'm just gonna be honest, I just have the feeling that a lot of you don't have the slightest interest in seeing this movie. And I kind of understand. The trailers for this movie, I'll admit, aren't the greatest, and just from the plot I explained, the movie sounds kind of lame. A robot befriends a bunch of animals and takes care of a baby goose. That sounds like the most little kid movie plot you can come up with. Well, the movie's based off a kid's book, so of course the plot is simple like that. But as for me, when I saw the trailer, specifically the teaser where there was almost no talking, it immediately grabbed me as someone who just loves animation. I love how the trailer was just quiet with no talking, and lets you soak in the breathtaking artistry in the animation, and it's from DreamWorks, who made hands down one of the best animated movies in the past few years, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Actually, let me just rephrase that. Just one of the best movies in the past few years. Oh, and then that second trailer came out, and then all the animals were talking, and it gave us an idea what the plot was, but I didn't care. I was still hyped for this movie. So as a lot of you know, a couple weeks ago, I reviewed Transformers 1, which I easily deem the best movie of the year so far. Hell, I love this movie so much that I, no joke, saw it 3 times in its opening weekend. I thought it was that freaking good. But, I don't know yet, I'm still debating on it. That might have all now changed because of The Wild Robot, because I love everything that this movie had to freaking offer. Now, I don't think I'm going to lose it over this movie like I did Transformers 1, because I knew this was going to be a masterpiece. I didn't know this was going to be a masterpiece. Right off the bat, this movie is so freaking beautiful. This movie definitely takes some inspiration from the animation of Puss in Boots 2, but still has its own style and feel. The best way I could put it is that they use watercolors for the backgrounds and stuff, but there's still like 3D models everywhere. Another thing I love about the animation, especially in the beginning, is that there are quieter moments where you are just supposed to soak in the environment of this island, and this is definitely a movie that I can watch on mute and get the same experience. If you took out the animals talking, but still had Roz talking, I think you'd still be able to understand about 90% of this movie, but there's still that 10% that you would need to have a little bit of context for though. But at the center of all of this is a movie that is so freaking heartwarming. The movie is both a story about parenting and acceptance. What it's like to go through life when you come from a different background than everyone else, and everyone else judges you for that difference, and the hardships of being a parent when you might not always know what you're doing, and the struggle of watching your young one grow up and leave the nest. The movie has a great emotional core, and I think it's one that every parent or even future parents can connect with easily. And fair warning, especially if you're in that category that I just mentioned, there will be points where you are going to tear up in this movie. Trust me. Now, as for someone who is not a parent but does want kids someday, this movie did make me think a few times of what it's going to be like to go through that one day. The voice acting is just fantastic. Lupita Nyong'o is perfect casting as Roz. She can do a robot voice very well, and she's really good at being funny with that deadpan voice. My favorite performance though was Pedro Pascal as Fink the Fox, who works off Roz very well, and them and Bright Bill the Goose work great as this like family of rejects. But one thing I wasn't expecting for this movie to tackle at all, or so well, was the concept of death, which can be a very scary topic for some kids to handle. The movie deals with it in a very funny and a very dark way because, let's just say that Roz did not just find the goose egg. But when it's done in a funny way, it's really damn funny. And this movie has a great dark sense of humor, and I got some good laughs throughout. If I had any nitpicks, because I don't have a single negative, I will say that this really isn't a story that you haven't seen a million times before, and it really doesn't bring anything new to the table. But kind of like both How to Train Your Dragon and Lilo and Stitch, it's the script and the delivery that does bring something new to the table, and you get so connected with these characters that by the end, you really don't care that this may not be the most original movie, but somehow it still feels brand new. So in the end, I just adored The Wild Robot, and I really do encourage everyone to go out and see it, no matter your age. It's beautifully animated, so freaking heartwarming, and it's got a great message about acceptance and a well-told parenting story that I think most adults with kids will relate to. I don't just think this is one of the best animated movies of the year, but also one of the best movies of the year, maybe the best. And heck, if you want a great double feature, go see this with Transformers 1 because they're both great movies and you really need to see both of them because goddamn, I think Transformers 1 needs to do better than it has. Now, is this better than DreamWorks' last masterpiece, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish? That ought to sit on for a little bit. But just like Transformers 1, I'm gonna give The Wild Robot an A+. And man, between this, Puss in Boots 2, and The Bad Guys, DreamWorks is kinda kicking Pixar's ass right now. I said kinda. But then again, they are the studio that released Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. Let's just forget that one ever happened. But anyway, on to our next movie. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was always going to be alone on this. But here we are. Oh my god. I thought I was the only one who watched the 2017 movie Wonder and thought, you know what this movie really needs? World War II and fucking Nazis. That would have made that movie so much friggin' better. Trust me.
I'm sure your father has told you stories about when I was a young girl.
He says you don't really like to talk about it.
I don't. But now, I think, for your sake, I must.
White Bird comes to us from director Mark Forster and is a somewhat prequel, somewhat sequel to the 2017 film Wonder, starring Owen Wilson and Jacob Tremblay. I really couldn't tell you how the two really connect to save my life. Ever since he got expelled for his treatment of a classmate with a facial deformity, Julian has struggled to fit in at his new school. To transform his life, Julian's grandmother finally reveals her own story of the courage of her youth in Nazi-occupied France, where a classmate shelters her from mortal danger. Lionsgate, are you feeling okay? Do you need help or something? Because what the hell are you doing? I mean, true, you released a few good movies this year, but ever since Borderlands, you've just been shitting all over the goddamn place. So yeah, White Bird. If you've seen this movie for some reason, then more than likely, you completely forgot about it. And when I say seen it, I mean like seen a trailer. But you more than likely completely forgot about it because for numerous freaking reasons, this thing has been delayed constantly. Hell, it just got to the point where I thought this thing was never going to come out. And if it ever did, it was just going to go straight to streaming or something. But there I was at this week's Monday Mystery Movie because I don't have an IMAX theater around my area, so no, I did not get to see the early fan screening of Joker Folly Ado. But anyway, I went to the Monday Mystery Movie, and lo and behold, it was White Bird, and yes, this was my guess for what it was going to be because, again, these things get to be so freaking predictable. And if it for some reason wasn't White Bird, my second guess was the new My Hero Academia film. I mean, they showed Spy X Family, so why wouldn't they show that? Even though in Spy X Family they explain everything you need to know, and I don't know if they do that in My Hero Academia in the movie, but whatever. That would have been a better choice than White Bird. Actually, so would Piece by Piece or Saturday Night. Or like, what about the Andrew Garfield movie that's coming out soon? Why didn't they show that? But no matter what I say about this, it is one of those long-delayed movies that is actually making me say, I can't believe I'm finally seeing this. But as I and a lot of others have stated recently, Lionsgate has been kind of on a losing streak these last 2 months, especially with three huge box office bombs, including their most recent, Megalopolis, becoming the second worst opening for any movie that was made over $100 million. I'm pretty positive that's what it was. Like, that was the record it broke. So after getting to see an early screening of the most anticipated movie for this week, bullshit, is White Bird on track to being Lionsgate's next John Wick? No, it's not. No, it's not. Oh my God, is it not? Is this a good movie? No. Is this a bad movie? No. But I know me laughing like this just made you think that this is like a major dumpster fire. Like, it's just like, what the fuck is this thing? No, apparently that's the other Lionsgate movie that's out in theaters right now. It's just, why the fuck did we tie this into the movie Wonder of all things? I mean, true, it's based off a book, so I'm guessing it's from the same writer who did Wonder, but these two don't connect at all. Just for a little bit of context, I only saw a trailer for this once like 2 years ago when the movie was originally supposed to come out, so I went into this movie completely blind, besides it had something to do with Wonder. And I'll just get this out of the way, the only thing that really ties this movie into Wonder, I guess, is that the person being told this story is the bully from Wonder, I guess. And I keep saying I guess because I only saw Wonder once and I barely remember it. Aside from that, this is just a straight up World War II Holocaust movie where our lead is Jewish and is hidden in a barn by a boy with polio from her class. And the best way I can explain this movie is that it's basically Jojo Rabbit if it wasn't a comedy, and for the entire movie, we mostly focused on the Jewish girl who is being hidden. I will say that the one major positive I have with this movie is that our two leads do have a lot of great chemistry together, and there are a few actually sweet moments between them. I actually like this one thing that they keep doing where they'll get into this car in the barn, and they'll like imagine that they're in some place different like New York or Paris, and those scenes were actually pretty nice. The movie does have a good story about kindness and what it means to protect someone in need, and our two leads do work good off of each other. Too bad though, because this movie as a whole is not only forgettable, but is just so freaking dull. But maybe never to the point where it gets boring, because there were a few scenes here and there that I did get into. There were scenes that I liked and they did really grab my attention. It's just that this movie doesn't do anything new with those scenes that we've seen in 20 other movies like this. It was all going in one ear and out the other. My other biggest issue is that it's way too long. It's only 2 hours, but good God, it does not need to be that long, and those 2 hours felt agonizing at points. I'm not even kidding, a majority of this movie is either spent in the freaking barn, or we have someone running away from Nazis in the woods. And I'm sorry, this is just me, a majority of this movie does take place in the winter, and I just could not stop thinking the entire time, how the fuck can that poor girl spend 1.5 years of her life in a freaking barn, mostly during the winter, and never once get sick? I call bullshit. And from the first moment that the grandma starts telling the story, it's predictable as all hell. We know from the very beginning that the name Julia means a lot to the grandma, and once we find out that the kid with polio is named Julian, I think most of you can just put the pieces together of what's gonna happen. There's also a few uses of like CGI wolves, and they looked freaking terrible. But despite everything I just said, I can maybe see some people getting into this movie. I mean, the audience I saw with seemed to really like it because towards the end, they really started to get teary-eyed because I could hear a lot of sniffling and all that crap in the background. But in the end, I just couldn't get into Whitebird, but maybe I'm wrong and you'll actually enjoy this movie. I just found it to be very dull with nothing really new to bring to the table. If you have the slightest interest in seeing it, I just wait for streaming because you really don't need to rush out to a theater to see it. I'm at least glad I saw it once, but it's probably one I won't remember after a couple days. Actually, hell, I'm recording this the day after seeing it and I barely remember any of it besides, yeah, they're in a barn and shit. I'm gonna give Whitebird a C. I also didn't even realize this till just now, but I guess this technically counts as the first time that they did a sequel, prequel, anything with a quel in it as the Monday Mystery Movie. Even though technically you don't need to watch Wonder to follow this movie, but it is nice to have that little bit of context of knowing that it does kind of tie into Wonder, and you get what I'm trying to say. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, turn on the notification bell, and while you're at it, go follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Trev's Movies, and this weekend I will be back with a review for Joker Folie à Deux, and I'll see you then.